All right, welcome everybody once again to the Kentuckiana FileMaker Developers Group. This month, Jonathan Fletcher is going to present for us, and he's going to show us some scripting techniques and some foundations on scripting. So take it away, Jonathan.
Hello. Excuse me. I just noticed I can't see my screen. Why can't I see my screen? Sorry. Um, there we go. Um, so I was going to talk about scripting from a foundational point of view, with but I really would like everybody to participate. Um, Everybody's got their ways of doing things. So, am I set up to present?
You should be able to share. I was just checking that. I just reset up for the new year.
Okay.
Hopefully we
All right.
don't have that problem.
There we go. Let me get the right screen here. Which one we're going to do? That one. And today. All right. Went away. Where'd it go?
Oh, there we go. There you are.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So scripting is very foundational to FileMaker, obviously. But it can go so many directions. There's so many different approaches to how it's done. So I was going to talk a little bit about the things I do, but then also I would really like everybody. I'm gonna stop occasionally and have other people give their suggestions as to what they do and what they like to do, because I have participated in forums where they discuss standards, um, and there really is no such thing as a standard for nomenclature and structure and techniques. So everybody has the and since we all kind of a lot of FileMaker developers kind of develop in a vacuum. They're by themselves. They learn
Mhm.
FileMaker for the first time without, nobody who's got a degree in FileMaker. Nobody has actually taken FileMaker in school. So a lot of it is self-taught. And so there's a lot of different, which is very makes it a lot richer. There's a lot of different approaches that I like to hear about. And so I, I'm not going to say that my way is the best. What I'm going to say is, I'm going to show you what I do and then have that stimulate some conversations. So, my first point, as the subtitle uh, uh, indicates, is that um, FileMaker is not real programming. I mean, if you're doing Objective C, that's more like real programming. FileMaker, the scripting is, because it's so high level and it's English and so it's I tell people I'm a software developer, but honestly, I'm not. I'm not really. I'm just a glorified database designer. Um, so anyway, so what I want to talk about is initially structure, and I need to reduce my. Where is the menu? Come on, my mouse disappeared. Sorry. There we go. I need to reduce my size here, and my mouse disappears. I can't find a control. All right, well, there's the. So, well, let's just go away. Anyway, so I have a template, and as you can see, I have um, a bunch of scripts that I will throw into every project that I work on. So I've got a bunch of, and we'll get into what some of them are. But this one right here is my script template. And are people able to see that okay? Because it's kind of small.
Yep.
See if
Well, yeah. If you could blow it up a little bit, might be nice.
does that blow it up, or does Zoom
Uh,
do?
In your Zoom share screen section, there's an advanced section where you can share a portion of the screen if you want. It'll narrow it down.
Yeah,
just-
Jonathan, Zoom has no effect apparently.
Oh,
What you
Yeah, we've had that
should
problem
do
in the
is just
past.
change your screen resolution.
Oh,
It's
then
easier
I'll
to
lose
share
so
screen.
much stuff.
yeah. I don't think we need to go to that extent. We could probably see well enough.
It's
Okay.
easier to do the share screen thing in Zoom and change the advanced settings to a portion of the screen.
But I'm going to be working with so many different windows that.
We must have this same size monitor, Jonathan. It looks fine to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got two 24-inch screens here.
Yeah, it looks fine.
Okay. All right.
Actually.
So I wanted to go through this. This is my template. And so I've got a lot of stuff up here to get started with. And we're going to get into documentation, but the thing I start with is a standard script skeleton. And so I've got and I tried to be really, really religious about this, because when I go back to see a script, even 6 weeks from now, I'll forget what I was thinking. So I like to write as much stuff as I can. So up at the first line, I'll put a brief description of what the script does. The first thing I do is I make a duplicate of, wrong one. I want to duplicate this. So I make a duplicate of the script, and then that is the one I work with. And now I was going to, in the solution, I was going to, and as you can see, this is highly structured. I can't claim this because oh, wait a minute. It didn't pull it. Come on. Here we go. This is a solution that I inherited from somebody else. If anybody's familiar with John Howell, he and I have been tag teaming this thing for years for this particular client. And so I needed to add something right there. Okay, so we're gonna work from there. Now, so as you can see, we're going to be back and forth to this through the presentation, but I just wanted to go through this top part here. I like to have as much information at the top that I need to refer to in the future. So this is going to be update tables and guest assignments. Yeah, can't type when people are watching. Everybody close their eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, what do we call that? Presentation anxiety?
Yeah. Or just bad typing. Now, I really go into a lot of detail about the different types of parameters that I might set. And then parameters is going to be a discussion we're going to have here. But right now, this particular script doesn't have any parameters. So I'm just going to say, so I always put none in there. Well, if I spell it right, so that I know that I'm not actually using any. I don't just leave it blank. And then I will delete all that. Those were just examples. Now, what's really important is, and I find that I use this all the time, is where it's called from. Is it called from some other script? Is it called from a button on the layout? Is it called from a trigger? That way, when I look up the script and I can find, okay, well, how is it being triggered, where do I need to look for where it's called? So this is something I use an awful lot. So this is
Oh,
going
that reminds me, if I may interrupt, I have a question. Now that you
absolutely.
mentioned that, is there a way in FileMaker to, I want to know all the scripts without running a DDR. I want to know all the scripts that are on that layout, that are triggered or activated or whatever from that layout.
Yeah, that's an FM perception job.
Right, but yeah, I mean, I know there are other things. There's nothing built into it though that'll give me that.
No,
Okay,
no.
just thought
No,
I'd ask.
I as you can see down here in the corner, I use Developer Assistant. So you can search for, strings that are in various places in the solution. So you can search for all the locations that script is called from a script here. But as
Oh, no,
far
I'm aware
as
of all that. I just
everything that's
wanted
on
to
a
know if I
layout,
missed something on the built-in side.
I've not heard of
Thank you.
that.
No, I
Yeah,
haven't either. I'll just keep
yeah,
asking.
yeah. If you're not using FM perception, you need to. I'm sure Barbara would agree. But
Have it open at the same time. It's always open.
yeah, I don't use it as much as I should. But if I really had to do what you asked, I would definitely pull out FM perception. So, so I've got a couple of things, and so I pass parameters. I've got a custom function. Oh, we're still up here, and then here I would say, and at this point I talk a little about the methodology. So, and then if I'm using any parameters, I would put that. I'm sorry, using any custom functions, I would put that here. Any special scripts that I have, I will put that here under dependencies. Oftentimes, a certain field or certain layout, or sometimes I'll put some other data in there. But most of the time, this is just for custom functions and scripts. And then, so I will update my date. So today's 28th. And then what I do when I go to make a change, I will or something, So so that way, when I look at the top now, unfortunately, this only works on the Mac. People who use Windows, this does not. It won't show you the multiple lines. It'll only show you the first line. But on the Mac, I can see a whole list up here right in the script. It shows me the all the different rows. If I create rows in the comment, it will show me all the rows. So I can see at the top a history of the things. Now, this is what I talked about being religious. You gotta make it a habit to do this all the time. Otherwise, it's just not going to be there for you, as is most things. That's what databases are for the clients, to keep track of stuff. So in my scripts, I like to also keep track of stuff. So I will create a little log here of every time I go in to change something, I'll put something. Now, in this case, we don't have any parameters, so I will delete this section. But you can see what I did. Usually, if I send an ID in parameter 1, so this is a custom function that says, hey, if there's a pipe, that then add a carriage return, and so this is going to be, and then get the value of the number. So like if I had a bunch of parameters that I sent to this delineated by pipes, it's going to then convert it to a list, and it'll do a get value on it. So I don't have to, rather than having all of that in a in a big old honking calculation, I'll just do a custom function that says param1, param2, because that's the way I pass parameters. Now, there are those who think that JSON, passing parameters as JSON is a much more elegant way to do it. I'm not there yet. So anyway, but I'm willing to be taught.
When you get there, you're going to love it, Jonathan.
So I'm told. Anyway, so then what I'll do is I'll just get rid of. Now, oftentimes, the next thing I would do here is say, okay, well, if I don't have a particular parameter, then we're going to have to do something about that, because I can't run the script without that parameter. So we're going to either log it or throw up a dialog and then exit out of the script, because we can't do the script without that. So that's just before we even start. We got to check to make sure everything is there. I don't have any parameters in this particular script. So, and then I've got a script script environment that we're not going to look at that. Basically, it sets a bunch of things like if the developer is logged in, we're going to do it one way, otherwise do it another way. Lock screen, various things that I always run at the beginning of every script. So I just throw it in a subscript. So what you're using that for is like a custom function kind of script. And that kind of goes, we're going to talk about function scripting, but you can see that script serves a particular purpose. I can just call that script as if it were a function or it's a subroutine, but since I use it all the time, I can just throw all that stuff into a script and I don't have to look at it every time I open the script. And then down under performing actions. This is where the script happens. And so what I will do is I will, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah. So you got the setup, and then you do the actions, and then you clean up and return. That's pretty much what everybody does with a script. I mean, I imagine. I don't know. Does anybody else have a different idea of how a script would normally run? Set stuff up, do stuff, and then clean up the mess? Nope. Okay. And honestly, I talk fast, I talk a lot. Jump in, interrupt me whenever you've got something that you think would be on topic. Oh yeah, we talked about my template. A template can be more than just a script, so obviously there's scripts, and then you can have certain fields that you're going to copy into a solution when you get set up, and then also your themes. But mostly we're just going to talk about scripts today. Now, what we're going to do here is I like to write a story when I get to do a script. And this is something I've talked about, and I've given this presentation a few times. Obviously it's never the same, because you never step into the same stream twice. But I have mentioned this a lot, that I like to organize my thoughts and kind of think through it. And what happened? Oh, great. Oh, well. So I like to organize my thoughts. I need to pull that up again. Where are we there? So I like to write, like I said, I like to write a story. So it's kind of like prose. So I'm going to, under performing actions, I'm going to start talking about what I'm going to do. So I'm going to call, oops. call a table management window. Now I may do a card window, or I may just switch layouts. So I think we're just going to switch layouts today. No, this is a card window. Later on, I just switch layouts. So then I'm going to, I'm going to call the window, and then I'm going to loop through some things. Now, what I'm doing, and I should probably show you so that we have an idea what's going on here. I have a, oh, why are we stuck in the middle of that? Come on. Why are you? I'm sorry. Okay, so I have this table management. This is for an event, and you assign people to tables and stuff. So, but when you pull this up, there may be certain totals and assignments that aren't updated. So what I was going to do is loop through all the records and update it when you pull this up. So that happens when you hit this manage assignments. So basically here, what we want to do is when we looping through fields when the server isn't real powerful. I'm sorry, looping through records. Really? I'm so glad we're recording this so this can be in perpetuity. Okay, so so there's a lot of calculations that are going on here, so I want to make sure that they're all the fixed values, because I try not to use calculations with other tables. I'll do that in a script, but other table occurrences. So I do not want table occurrences to show up here. I want these all to be stored values so that at least this displays correctly. So looping through the script is what took the time. So anyway, this is what's going to happen. So I'm writing a script to perform all those calculations. So so we call the table management window, and then we have a loop. Sorry. So we're going to loop through the guests. And then we want to start off by making sure that our guest records. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. We don't want to do it if we didn't actually find any guest records. So I will go through and I will work out the logic of how I'm going to approach this. So first thing I'm going to do is switch layouts. And then I'm going to step through guest records.
We all do that. I wish you just would know. You know what I'm saying? You know I made a comment.
You mean you would just know how to do
No.
it? You don't actually work through your
No. I mean, I know I appreciate the using comments to I do that too. You know,
Okay.
just understanding what, but I'm saying in FileMaker, when you start typing and it's just starting to guess the function instead, I wish it would realize 99% of the time I just really want to comment.
Yeah.
Convert it for you.
That's so
So
funny.
just don't feel bad. We feel your pain.
We do.
No, I think it's a great idea, because sometimes you get so caught up in the how, you lose track of the what. So if you think through the what first,
Yeah,
and then figure out the how. That's the best advice I could give anyone starting on this.
Yeah, and that's why.
Yeah, I
Okay.
overly comment my scripts.
So this way, as so, I guess I kind of got into this habit because in college, when I write term papers, I start with the outline. I write an outline, I start adding more and more detail to the outline, more and more detail, more and more detail, so that when you end up with, you've got the paper written from the outline, and the outline is the underlying structure of it. And I just keep adding, which means you can random access. Okay, well, the topic is here, so I'm going to write on that topic for a little while, and I'm going to go write on a different topic, but the outline keeps everything in the proper order. So I have more to the script that we're going to do in a minute, but what I wanted to go through here is how you've got kind of an order of what you're going to do here. Some of it's shorthand because I know what I'm thinking. So obviously back means I'm going to go back to the where I change layouts.
But you do it the same way every time, so you know what you're doing, right?
Right.
No, I love it.
Missed one. Okay. So so you see the structure, and my point about doing that is when you're done, you're already documented, because that structure that you put into that story that you wrote, that's your documentation. All your comments in between, you can add ones later if you want. If you find, oh yeah, I forgot to talk about this, that's okay. But you just leave all these comments here, you fill in between, and it's self-documented. So you don't have to think about that. Again, going back and documenting something after I've written it would kill me. I would never do it. So I find this way, and also, being old and of feeble mind, I find that this helps me stay focused. And um and also, when I come back to it tomorrow, I'm like, what was I doing? What was I going to do next? It's already written down. So this is the most important part of the script is, before I even put any code in at all, it's it my my design is already there, and all I got to do is flesh it out. The skeleton that you're going to put flesh on, so that's why I do that. Now, so I got a bunch of other, this script's a little complicated. So I got a bunch of other stuff, but that was the main point, is I wanted to show that you, you start off thinking at the 40, Dave Ramsey's the first one I ever heard, the 40,000 foot view, that expression from him. That was like about 15 years ago, where you start off looking at it from way overhead, to try to get a lay of the land, and then you get down there and start building your buildings. So so that's what my point about the prose-like narration. So you narrate the story here, and then it's a visual, like I mentioned also, it's a visual aid. So when you are working through it, you kind of have an idea what you're going to do next. Now, there's various structures. So I talk about looping here, and there's going to be some if then. So where we step through the records, we're going to have a loop there. And then the end loop will be when we're all the way after the next and just before we go back. We're going to end it. So this is where the stuff that we do we set some fields. Now, so that's the one common structure is loop. The other structure within the script is obviously the if then. So we've got if, else if. I was just looking at that client I was telling you about that. Oh, by the way, and by now everybody knows this, but it's worth mentioning. You can type the first two letters, the initials of the script step, and it will pick it. So you type EI, it finds else if, which is I find really handy a lot of times. Obviously, it's not 100%. It's not going to work every time, but 90% of the time it works great. So, you can also do that with like get functions. So you want a record number. Oh, I'm sorry. That would be in a variable. So if you want to say, I'll get record number, so you can just do get and then rn return. So it works with functions as well as script steps. I was telling you, my client, she didn't know about else if, so she had all these nested if end if nested like 6 or 7 deep in this one script I was looking at, and I felt real bad for her because she was working way too hard. So you can do set field and we do another set field. Now when you're doing a find, I while we're on the subject of the abbreviations, you can do an enter find mode, a set field, and a perform find. Oops. And perform find. So we got EF, SF, PF, and you get your enter find, set field, and perform find structure. So I found that really convenient. So what I often do too, so we're going to have actually 2 loops. We're going to have another loop down here. My keyboard. It's all the keyboard's fault, right? So I can, take all of this and copy it and, throw it down here and do, once I get this fleshed out, it's really handy to save a lot of time if you're going to do something similar, to just copy and paste it and then make the few changes and you're good to go. Now, there were some other things I was going to talk about. So that's the structures within the script. Now, a very powerful thing we do with scripts is that we can perform them on the server. Now, frequently, we can just call another script. Perform script. Oops, sorry. PS. There we go. So we can perform a script, but there's obviously you can just type PSOS too. And so there's a perform script on server. Now, sometimes you don't know where your script is going to be run. So what I like to do is I like to call the script. I don't like to call a subscript with perform script on server without conditions. So oftentimes what I will do is after I get my so I don't like to do layouts and stuff like that in PSAW. So I will probably put something here. So I'll do perform script. Now, if I was going to take this section here and stick it in another script, I could, where it's just looping through. Actually, I should put that before the loop. So that would go here. So I would send a few parameters to the server and run the script. Now, I don't like to, like I said, I don't like to actually do that as a subscript. What I like to do is I like to call the script and then have the script decide whether it can be run on the server or not. So like if it's running and the file isn't hosted, what I like to do is I like to check first, because I've got a few clients that run the file in a variety of places. So I like to, if we're running it on the server, it's going to do it one way. If it's running locally, we don't want to try to perform script on server because there is no server. So what I will do is I will say a couple of things, and I'll usually stick these in double $ variables at the beginning of when I set the file up in the file environmental setup scripts at the beginning of the solution, where I set double $ variables to be used later, or globals, global fields, however you like to do that. So, but in this case, the functions are wait a minute. Why is it not? There we are. Okay. If sorry. So if there is a host, it will tell you. So you just say if not is empty, host name. Okay. The other time you don't want to run a PSOS is when you're actually running on the server. So if this script is already being sent to the script, to the server, and it's already running on the server, we don't want it to run on the server there. So we also check to make sure that the yeah. The current application version. And I'll do a pattern count here. And so basically that says, and there you may have a favorite way of doing this. I'll just say, is there a host name? Then it is being hosted. If the application version, not the host application version, but the application version that the script is running in, if it includes server, then we know, and I should actually say not there. And so there's no server in the name of the application version that you're using. So what this says, and then And then I will do my PSOS. Oops. Okay, so what that does, and I oftentimes I'll have this at the beginning of a script. So if I call this script and it's mostly just calculations and stuff, I can send it to the server. And if there isn't a server or we're already running on the server, then and so often what I'll do, if the entire script is what I'm calling, so I'll have maybe a subscript of this stuff. What I'll do is I'll say, well, okay, I'm going to run that script locally if there is no server. But if there is a server, I'll send it to the server and run it there. Well, I'm going to run the same script, so what I would do here is oh yeah, is run. Oh, you can't do get script name. Oh well. So I will just call the same script. I will just go in here and this is. Did I name it yet? No, this is script copy. Anyway, so what I'll do is I'll just call myself, call the same script name that is running, and so this would take care of it. Running this at the beginning of the script would take care of wherever it's at. It'll send it to the server if it can, and if it can't, it'll just run it locally. So what I would have is this actually would be here. So, and then not this. So it would just run it here. So anyway, what I'm saying though is that if you've got a script that you want to run on server, stick this logic at the beginning of the script, and it will send itself to PSOS if it can. Otherwise, it'll run it locally. So that's a good way to have a script always knowing where it needs to be run. So anyway, any questions on that?
I do have a comment.
Okay.
You can get yourself in trouble with that design pattern. We're finding a lot of, we have a solution that we took over where almost every script is trapped that way, where it flips to the server at the beginning of every script, and it floods the server, and it brings down performance for everybody.
I understand that.
So
I
you really
wouldn't
have
do
to
it
be
on every
careful with
script.
that design pattern.
I only use that on things that really could benefit from being on the server. So I don't do that with everything.
Okay. You also have to obviously trap that it couldn't run. Because you can't guarantee that it's going to run on the server. That script set can fail with an 801. So
okay. So you have to trap for that.
Yeah.
See, this is why I wanted this discussion.
Yeah,
so
it's not a cure-all.
So you do an attempt, and if it comes back with an error,
capture an error
locally.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the newest versions of FileMaker have a lot of good caching going on, and so this is possibly less needed than it was in the past.
Okay. Oh, good to know. I like that. Okay. Yeah, a lot of my solutions don't have a whole lot of people working in them a lot. So, if it was for a large company, I would definitely pay more attention to stuff like that.
Jonathan, can I add one thing too? There is a way now, I can't remember which version it came out, that you can run perform script on server while it's already running perform script on server. You got to change the release note, the debug text file. I think I was just looking up. Client's got a blog post on. I'll put it in there. But you are capable now. I'll put it in the chat. But you are capable now of running a PSOS while PSOS is running. It doesn't just exit and fail if you desire to do that.
Well, my logic is that it instead of it being oh, I see. So it would exit and fail if if you called perform script on server. But what I like to do is just not call it when it's on
Yep.
server.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the logic, is that it doesn't try that. So that's the Soliant that you put in the chat.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat.
Okay, I am going
And Barbara, to your
yeah.
point, I could see you bringing down the server real quickly using this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the aforementioned John Howell works for a large medical device company. They've got like 12 FileMaker servers and, millions of records, and they have strict rules that nobody runs a perform script on server. They have all kinds of things about what they can do, when they can do it, because they're doing live development on a system that's massive. And so those kinds of things, for small clients, you can get away with a whole lot more than you can when your client starts to get large. You really need to have some procedures in place.
Well, John's talked about this job scheduler where he puts a script name on a stack, and then runs his server-side script in like a mainframe job scheduler.
Yeah, that's a good approach too, because that will limit the number of scripts that are running at the same time.
Yeah, you get to
so,
serialize the operations, and you can even run multiple ones of those threads parallel if you've got the server capacity. So
right, and
Yeah.
and that will actually run a lot faster than trying to run 20 scripts at once. Running a couple right after each other gets the whole thing done a whole lot faster.
But you're not controlling other clients. I don't really understand. If you do a dispatch script for one person, that you're controlling just their feed to the server, but you're not controlling all the others.
No, it's you stick it, if I understand it correctly, you've got a server script that just keeps running and checks to see if it's got anything it needs to do.
Oh, a queue. You write a record into a
like
queue and have your
like a
server-side
queue.
script do
Yeah.
the true.
Now-
it basically drops the script name into a table, and then it runs every minute or 5 minutes or whatever you want. It checks the script.
That's actually that is actually the basis for what we call Simple Queue, a product we released that does something
John's
like
been
that.
doing it for years.
Mm.
Yeah, John has done a couple presentations at DevCon about that. Yeah, and
queuing system.
Right, and so that really relieves your server of those high traffic jams. And like I said, if you've got a large company with a lot of people using it, that's so much more critical. But for smaller companies, like most of what I deal with, it's not that big a deal.
I got John's help on a similar situation because with a system that I do with 20 plus users, and they're firing out information through email through the database every sometimes constantly, and it needs to offload a file and attach it. And then we, once COVID hit and everything, we made a massive conversion to WebDirect. So you can't really write a script that's going to offload a file and attach it in WebDirect. So I wrote the script to do perform script on server, to do it on the server. But then they were crashing into each other so much, and I was looking for a solution. It was John that helped me work out a scheduled script and a queue that, whenever they sent email, it just put all the parameters into a table, and then the script runs every couple of minutes and sends out all those emails. And the performance was huge.
Much better approach.
Oh, yeah. So
yeah.
I'm going to speak up for the robots.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, for many years, even before these other technologies came into the scheduled scripts and the PSOS, both awesome. Good use for an old computer, like an old Mac, is just set it up with a robot. And then you can, if you ever need to tap into the script steps that are not PSOS compatible, not server compatible, for PSOS or scheduled scripts. Just an old Mac sitting there quietly chugging away. Another way to run your queues. The other John Howell's suggestion to run through the scheduled scripts. I thought that was very clever. You already mentioned that. One thing I'm kind of playing along at home here, John, is I put get host name and I built a local file, and get host name will return a string. Excuse me, when run on a non-hosted file. So the not empty get host name, I don't think it's ever empty. I could be wrong.
Oh,
People can check me on this.
okay.
Yeah,
I usually
I
combine it
think
with a
just
get
the-
connection state.
What's that? Well,
I
I'm not. Well, okay, but certainly get host name, just returns the system account from a locally hosted file.
Okay. I
Yeah,
forget
so I
what
think the pattern
what-
count for server is sufficient. I mean,
I think that's true.
well, yeah, but if you're on the server, I'm trying to find.
Well, the John, what you had in there,
Yeah,
Ron,
the
what
get
Ron
host,
said
the get
seems to
host
be true.
name. Yeah, the get host name, I
I mean,
understand.
someone else can test me here. I did make a sample file. It took me 30 seconds. And then I did the get, and it's like, it's not empty. It's a string. It's
Okay.
the system account. So
Yeah.
anyway,
You're right, it's Tony, it's not empty.
yeah.
You're
So
right.
now
Okay.
look at that.
So we'll
Your system's going to
find
run
one.
faster. Because it's going to. I'm just joking about it running faster.
Oh, okay.
But the code will be a little less Boolean.
yeah, I happen to have
Okay.
a local file open on my computer and just did get host name and it gets the computer name. So
Okay.
that's why I use
All right.
get connection state in conjunction with it.
And it's
Mm.
is it the computer? Well, it's something. It's not empty. That's for sure. Hold on, I got to see what it is.
It should
Could be the
return
account name. Let me see if the account name and the computer name. Not that it matters. Yeah,
Get
I can't
connection
tell. It's
state.
one or the other because I got them named the same. My account name and my computer name are the same.
Yeah, get connection state will return a 3 if you get an SSL connection.
What
to
do
it.
you need get connect Kirk? What do you need get connection state for?
It determines if you've got a live connection out over to something else. You're connected to a server, and it'll return a 3 if you've got an SSL connection.
Okay, which isn't a total solution, because
No, it isn't. It has
sometimes,
to be combined with something else, but
yeah. Okay.
and it did, Tony, by the way, it did grab my computer name. So
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, I should have tested it. I find that the evaluate button is way more, yeah. Well, actually, this is not local. So what if you did get host application version?
I put a calc in the
Well-
chat that we use a lot.
Okay, oh, this isn't the local file. So would
host application version locally returns nothing. So
okay,
it should
Okay.
return pro if it's local.
I'm getting nothing.
that's application version would
Yeah.
return
No, host
pro.
application version according to the help file returns pro if it's or pro 19, whatever the version is. If it's running
Yep.
on the
If it's running local,
Oh.
okay.
Yeah, that's not what I'm getting on get host application version. I just get nothing. So it's empty. So
so the help
anyway,
file's wrong.
Okay.
So
So Barbara,
Right.
what you're saying is and this is what Barbara put. So you look for the FMNet in the path name to get file path. Okay. And then you test for
Just like
for
you were
the-
doing a pattern count on get application version.
okay.
And
That's
Barbara,
that's our what environment you're in.
it's a bold and daring use of the single $sign variable instantiated within a let statement. Bold and daring.
That's pulled out of a script. So
Yeah, I wouldn't use a $sign variable, but unless you want it to exist outside that calculation elsewhere in the script, which sometimes you might want to do. Which
And we
I do
just
sometimes.
put in a custom function that's called is running on server with very similar formula to what Barbara.
Something like this. This looks like what she. Was this a custom function, Barbara? Or
No.
you just throw this in your script?
No, this is a first statement of a script to do what you want to do. To do like, should I run locally, or am I running on the server already? If not, switch me up to perform script on server.
Okay.
It's out of our product Simple Queue, so that's freely available code that you could check out.
So you're finding this to be reliable then?
Very, yeah.
The path. Okay. That's good. I like that. Okay.
The other thing that I would mention, Jonathan, when you're running a loop, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I immediately add my exit condition. I don't leave a loop without the exit in it. So may I suggest you put one in there?
Well, it does go in there, and I was going to address that too.
Okay.
Different kinds.
It's
been weighing on me.
Now there is a trick that if you do, oops.
What?
Okay, if you do the next.
Yeah. And for reason it doesn't default to on.
Exit. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a pain. But
yes.
If you say exit after last on.
Yes.
And
you're going to get a 101.
You're going to get an error.
Yes.
On in the script log.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. In the server log, you're going to get an error. So what I always do, just to be OCD, is
you can do that.
So if record number equals found count, I'm out. So if I'm on the last record, I'm going to exit the loop. So in that case, it never hits the go to next record.
It's a good tip.
If you don't include that, or if somehow that fails, you always have the fallback of the go to next record, exit after last. So it will still exit. So you'll never get a loop doing this, but also 99 and 4400% of the time you're never going to get that error line in your server script. So a server log, I'm sorry, I keep saying that.
Event log.
Event log, right.
Yeah.
So so I standardize on doing this, and I had it's in my sample script that I'm copying off of, and I just hadn't gotten to that yet. But you're right. Okay. It's absolutely, if you're going to have a loop, you got to do something.
Well, I just caught an infinite loop from this project we just took over. That was running on WebDirect.
Yeah.
So it was what, Barbara?
Yeah. We just had an incident where one of these products that we recently took over their project, they had an infinite loop in a WebDirect session, brought everything down. Wow. So we traced it down to a script that had no exit condition. So we're a little primed here for exit conditions and loops.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're deadly. You know, if you're and you're developing, most of us all develop live. Who doesn't develop live? Okay.
Live is the way to go.
Yeah.
We'll never develop live again.
Since
I know it's
Auto has made it so easy to
like I have no reason to.
I developed live in a couple of solutions that Jonathan and I worked together on, but for my primary employer, the solution that I work in is just way too dangerous to work in live, and so having a
that's where the
development
excitement
person.
is. Hey, John, that's a good tip. Can I give you a tip for a tip? Can you do something for me, and for the world in general? If you type in GET, and then hit the return key, can you do that in a calculation?
Okay.
Yeah, one of those things.
Oh,
Oh, in the type ahead area.
Yeah, if only
Okay.
that had it.
Hold on. I'm gonna. Oh my goodness.
you said get and then a
Hold on.
return key?
Hey, hold, Lori, hold on just one sec. Yeah, hit get. No, just hit the return key. Ta-da!
What?
What's to
No, I'm just getting off a Zoom call. So you type get, hit. No, stay right there. Hey guys, it was lovely hanging out. I gotta go. Lori, you stay there.
Thanks, Tony. I like that. I didn't know about that it automatically puts in the parentheses. And if you hit the return key, is that what happened, Jonathan?
I guess I don't know
Oh.
what the
Is that what he's saying? Is that if you type
Bye,
get and
Tony.
hit return? Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Tony.
I think what he's pointing out is that if you type get and then hit return, it automatically puts in the parentheses.
I guess
Right,
that's what it is, yeah.
because I always type the first parenthesis and then get that. But what he's saying is I don't have to type the parenthesis. All I need to do, all I need to do is type get and the carriage
Okay,
return.
we got a second
So that was his
of our life.
point.
Yeah.
That is
That adds
good.
up.
Yeah, that's
It is
Yeah,
true.
what-
Okay. Okay.
One less keystroke. Okay.
And
Okay.
LMC for less message choice.
Can I jump in on one thing that Barbara was talking about, that getting, whether it's inheriting
okay.
code or we coding ourselves and get ourselves stuck in a loop? I've really gotten in the habit. My first line of every loop calls a subscript that is dev halt loop. And it passes one parameter, it's just get account name. And then in that subscript it calls, everything is disabled. There is no action in there. And all there is some commented out code that says, if get account name equals, and then just leave it blank, halt script. And every time it goes through the loop, because that entire script is commented out, it doesn't actually enter it until I turn back on that if get account name equals Chris Conger, and then it'll halt the script. So if I know the user's name that is stuck in a loop, I can halt their loop. Does that make sense?
I guess, sort of.
Here, do you want me to? I can show you.
Okay, so is that a variable or a field?
It's a subscript, and the only thing that's passed in the subscript is the get account name. And this was a Charles Delph tip, and I absolutely love it.
He's changing the script as they're processing it.
There's a subscript. The first line of the loop is a subscript.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that subscript is entirely commented out. All that subscript really needs is a halt script in it that's commented, a halt script that is commented out. If someone gets stuck in an infinite loop, I turn on that script's halt step. And the next time it goes through the very next time it goes through the loop, now it'll jump into the subscript because it's not all commented out, and it'll halt the script.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Ah, okay. Nice.
A little safety hatch.
Yeah, and you can advance it to like get it. So you only want to halt a certain person's name. You could pass as a parameter a particular script name. So you're just halting those scripts. And it works really well as a halt of a loop and not trying to kill your server.
Yeah.
A dead man switch.
That's a great idea.
That's exactly what it is.
Can you run that by me one more time?
Okay, I gotta go write that one down.
Okay, so what he's talking about is creating a script. So let's just create a new blank script. Come on, there we go. So what he's talking about is he has a halt script step at the beginning, and he comments it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he calls this script every time in every script. This is
In
part
every-
of part
In
part of
every
the
loop, you
setup
have this.
of
In every loop, I
of
call
every
that
of every
subscript
loop.
as my
Okay.
first step.
The first step of every loop calls this script. So he can go in from another machine and change this script, save it, and that will halt the script, the loop of the.
That is fantastic.
Could you do an
Yeah,
would you
that is
would you be able to
fantastic.
do an exit loop, or it has to be halt
And no, you can't do the exit loop because it's in a
because it's in a different script? Yeah.
But
Okay.
I would add to that, you should wrap it in if either the script name. So you should pass it a single parameter, whether it's the script name or the username, because you don't want to kill anyone running a loop at the point that you do that. If you have multiple users, so we actually pass the
Okay.
username and the script name in the subscript that calls it.
I'm going to ask a silly question, Chris. Why do you have to pass the script name? Can you hear me?
Because I don't want to kill every person that is running a loop at that point. I only want to kill that one instance saying no.
Oh, I see. All right.
Right, because he's got that
And he has
included
this in every
loop in
every one of his loops. Yeah.
So
Okay.
there could be multiple scripts running loops.
So what you'll do is, I mean, you can just leave this live. So what you'll do is leave this empty and just go ahead and put the person's name in there.
Yep. But the key is
Okay.
to comment it all out when you're not using it, because then because the subscript has everything commented out, it doesn't affect performance. You don't want to have to go in there every time you're running through a loop and evaluate it. So you turn everything off at that point, disable it, and then you enable it when a client calls and says, I'm stuck.
So you wouldn't
Use 9 times out
just
of 10, it's me that I looped myself into.
Enable the kill switch.
Yes.
All right. I absolutely love that, Chris.
Yeah,
Well,
That might be the newest
fantastic.
thinking I've heard in a long time.
so you wouldn't just wrap it in a
No,
leave it active.
you could. I don't want it to even go into that script though, right? Like I don't want it to enter that script. If I'm looping through thousands of records, I don't want to even enter that script unless I need it.
So
I
if
disable
everything's
everything.
commented out in the script, it doesn't
Yep.
enter the script?
Correct.
Oh,
interesting.
okay.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, okay. That's nice. So it really doesn't even need much in the way of management at all. It's
Yep.
just the username and then halt script. Okay.
Yeah. And then the subscript that's calling it, you just pass as a parameter the username.
Oh, okay.
Probably get.
I mean, I
get
take it back to the username. For the username, you wouldn't have to, but for the script name, if you're using the script name, yeah, but we pass it as a parameter either way. But
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's really simple to do. And just,
So it's more focused if it's this
exactly.
script.
Yeah.
So you're saying
Then
when you
enable the
run-
halt. Yeah.
So you're saying when you run that, when you put that script step in the loop, it's sending the script name as a parameter,
Mhm.
Yep, correct.
performing the script?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
got it.
It just helps you control it because you don't want to kill everyone's loops. You just want to kill that one specific case.
Right,
So it just gives you a little bit more control.
fantastic.
That's nice.
How long have
Okay.
you been using this technique?
Oh, probably 2 or 3 years now.
Oh, that's proven.
I've only had to use it 2 or 3 times though, but it's a lot better than having to shut down your server. That's for sure. Because sometimes even when you try to halt someone's script on running on a server, it doesn't always seem to work the way you want it
I
to.
was going to ask you, why didn't you just kill them off the server? But
Yeah, because
okay.
sometimes it just doesn't work the way
Okay.
you think it's going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes FileMaker
Yeah.
FileMaker doesn't respond to bullets in the head very well.
Yeah, let go, and then you crash. Yeah, it's fun.
Well, yeah, but I mean sometimes it just won't even respond.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
like it just goes totally deaf. And so no matter what you're trying to do to shut it down. So what Chris is talking about is an elegant way while the server
In
is
a
still
targeted
running
way.
to shut itself down. That's nice. Okay.
I like it.
Ah, well. All All right. I was going to talk about something else here.
Exiting loops.
You
started.
talked.
I started us off.
That's great. Barbara, you said something about GLM, get GLM.
That's message choice. That's my favorite little shortcut because I hate typing.
Oh,
Probably
GLC.
type less message choice as fast as I type LMC. So we have to do Tony's
Oh,
thing.
LMC.
Get, return,
Okay.
LM2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Nice.
what I was going to talk about is I use a macro tool.
Me
So
too.
I have what's it called?
I use Typinator.
I use text expander.
Mhm.
So what I do is I type GLM
And it delivers.
and oh wait a minute.
Key expander, yeah.
Wait a minute. That's not it.
Mine all start with FM. So
Oh yeah. Mine don't.
the Petrasky library. I don't know if anyone else is a Typinator. Yeah, Matt Petrasky published a whole Typinator list of shortcuts. And he chose FM as the start of all of them. So like Jason
Why
said,
is it-
element FMJ set.
None of them are working. Huh. Let's try this again.
This is where I wish. Well, this is what's great when you have the key text expanders, because you're not in the calc engine when you're in that other dialogue, and you don't get any help from autocomplete.
So I have a bunch. Good.
Yeah, those are your shortcuts.
is-
Yeah,
It is GLM.
GLM.
Why is it not working?
I don't know, demo gods.
There we go. Okay. So
There you go.
I'm almost always going to have last message choice equals 1. So
Why?
I just GLM.
Interesting, because
It-
I usually check for cancel and exit.
I agree.
Interesting,
I
you
never
check
use
for
one.
okay.
One is just continue. So I never use
One is the default choice.
Right.
So that's the one I have set up first. Or I can change it, obviously.
Yeah.
I think what they're
While
saying
we're
is
on this,
more
while
often
we're
than
on
not,
this,
I'm
We're
giving
into
somebody-
design pattern.
Yeah, more often than not,
Yeah.
I'm using a dialogue to give
Wars.
somebody a chance to bail out. And if they don't bail out, then you just continue on with the script. So
Yeah,
I'm looking
yeah.
I'm looking, not necessarily looking for okay, because okay is just continue. So
Yes, I mean,
absolutely.
and
I try to avoid else's
yeah,
in my script as much as possible. So it's usually,
I do
if
have
get
a-
less message choices 2, exit script, and if. And then the rest of the
Alright.
script will happen.
I've kind of set up a
I
situation.
don't know. It's just really preference. And like I said at the very beginning, when you said about conventions, we're not big on conventions here. We're just big on consistency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can see the way these scripts are named with
Yeah,
numbers.
that's very common.
That's something I have never done before.
Yeah.
And it has absolutely rewired my brain to see that and to work in a system that was already
Yeah, that's good.
working that way. But anyway, so back to the macro tool. I have a lot of design patterns and things that I do. So
Yeah.
what I can do is I have, you've got your usual let, well, I
Yeah.
have various
That's a nasty one.
other
That's a-
lets. Yeah.
Didn't do it.
Why did it do that? It's
It was
now
interesting
like,
because that's why I kind of had mine with FM in front of it, even though Matt kind of gave this to us, so they don't clash with the existing. I'm wondering if your let, because it starts with let,
Mhm.
is clashing with the FileMaker's let. Like, wouldn't it have to be different letters? But let is definitely one
There we
that
go. Okay.
you want the structure.
So if I'm doing a counter,
Yeah, I don't do that. I used to do that.
if like say I'm going through a list
Mm-hmm.
rather than looping through records,
Yes.
I will use this structure. Now, some people like to do this in two steps. That's fine. You know, it's so easy to do it this way that I just have a few keystrokes and it does it. You know, for my exit script at the beginning of a loop. If I'm looping through a list of data. The other thing I like to do is with my, and this is to open up a whole nother can of worms.
I know. Why it always devolves to this. Sorry.
Okay, here's a can of worms for you. This is my SQL structure. And it's just a few keystrokes and I get the whole thing. So I can put in, you know, my field name. I also have this particular function has a second parameter. And then so I can go ahead and put some fields in, and if I don't know.
Yeah, you have to wrap in custom functions. So at least it's that. Everyone has sort of a different little one that did this. We have our own, but yeah.
And then I will put, you know, something here, you know.
Right. What is filling in the question mark?
Whatever.
Yeah.
And that's all. I do that all the time. And I've written, you know, and my SQL queries take me 30 seconds or less to throw together when I want to pull something from an unrelated table occurrence or unrelated table. And so with this structure being in a macro, I can just, you saw how that's all it's needed. You know, so, and then, you know, if you got another parameter, you can delete it. I mean, you can duplicate it and.
Yeah. You gotta change your where codes, but yeah. Although that being said, we're big fans of find mode over using XQSQL.
Find mode. Okay, tell me about
good old
that.
find mode. One of the things you have to be careful about with execute SQL is, and Vim again has an article on it. If you query against a table where you, the user, have an open record, you will get a major performance hit.
Right.
So if long as you know that,
a lot of that,
you'll probably be fine. But you'll find in many of our scripts, we'll use SQL for a quick go get this preference value or something like that. But if we're doing something complex, we'll do a find and return the IDs from the find.
If it's the table you're already in.
If it's a table you're already in and you have an open record, execute SQL will bring down every record in that table.
Right, I understand that. But what you're saying,
so you want to avoid that.
But what you're saying though is that if you are already on that table, is that what you're saying? You do a find, or do you pull up a new window, off-screen window, do a find, and then get your data and come back, or do you do it
pretty much
right
that,
where you're at?
Pretty much that,
so
yes.
You're going to pull up another window, do a find, get your data, and then close the window.
Yes, I'll say that. Yes.
Yeah.
Is that
but
so that's what you're talking about?
Our whole script structure is quite different from this to begin with. Then you want to hijack your meeting with that. We usually have a whole separate table. That's where our scripts are. And we call it a controller. And many of our files, we kind of write what we call FileMaker API scripts, and they accept JSON in, they perform whatever needs to be performed, most likely in a transaction, and return JSON out. So I would call a query API to return me back my data in another file.
Oh, okay, I see. And so you've got scripts
but it's essentially
call those APIs. Okay.
A new window, do the find, grab my list of IDs, that list of summary calc, right? Grab that list of IDs, close my window. Now I got my list, and then I'd loop the list of IDs.
Okay.
Something like that.
So you're saying that's a lot faster. Well, I mean, if you're not in that table, don't have an open record in that table.
find
Do-
that doesn't do that.
I think she's
But,
saying it's less
It's
dangerous.
not that it's faster. It's that when you get into complex execute SQL,
Hmm.
it's gnarly. You can do a lot of really complex stuff with good old basic fine scripting.
Oh,
So
the more complex it gets, the more I do it in FileMaker. I use
Yes.
I use the execute SQL for simple stuff when I want to
Yes,
just go
us
get
too.
one piece of data in a table
Exactly.
that's not related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this particular solution,
Yeah, that's kind of what
uh,
we limit ourselves to
this
look
particular
at this one
solution
too.
has a nutso obnoxious. You know, I'm this isn't a lot for some people, but I mean,
No.
the more the graph, more complex the graph gets, the less I'm inclined to, oh, hey, let's just throw another multi-predicate table occurrence on here to pull up a piece of data.
Exactly.
But I like your approach where you go to that table, do a find, and bring it back. That's an
Yeah.
idea. Okay.
I don't know if anybody else is like me, but when Execute SQL came out, I went nuts with it
I know.
and
We all went
started
through
using it for everything. And
We all got
then
burned.
the performance issues started to come up, and I started to find out just how
Yes.
dangerous it was. And ultimately, at this point, I so rarely ever use it now, just because it's like juggling a hand grenade. It's like, yeah, I could use it, but there's a chance it'll explode in my face, or I could just stick with something that I know is not going to explode in my face and do it that way.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
That's why I wanted this presentation, is because I want to discuss those things. I want
Well,
you all
meeting of the minds.
to
Yeah.
tell me what, you know, what's good, what you found. And this is
It's all
something
situational, though,
benefit to
Jonathan.
everybody. I'm sorry?
It has to be. You always have to approach FileMaker as situational. There's no
Right.
one best answer. There's no one best
Right.
way. It's
That's why discussions are great.
anytime I go to Todd, it's always the answer is depends.
yeah,
I always want, tell me how to do this. Depends. So, and that is the truth of FileMaker. What is your situation? What are your table? What are you in? What are you doing? How many users? What's the server specs? You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are some,
And that only comes from experience.
I know.
You know, there's no manual on that stuff.
I know. As I say, you know,
Yeah.
just in a situation to train a new user, you're like, oh gosh, how do you not dump on them?
I had a client one time that asked me to train them in FileMaker, and we got like an hour into it, and her eyes were rolling back in her head, and she's no, I'm done. No, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm not discounting the possibility that I might not have been the best of teachers, but you know,
Right.
trying to do where do you start? You know,
I know.
trying to do a brain dump. There's so much, and then one thing leads to another, and I'm like, so I don't do that anymore. Okay, now what you mentioned something really good about calling a script that does something. Send it, call a script with some parameters. It does something, and sends you the data back.
Yeah.
That is. I mean, I've heard that called in the past function scripting, where you treat a script as a function. You call the script with a value and you get a value back. So, which is just exactly the way we do use functions.
can I jump in here for a second? Because essentially, my whole technique for scripting is entirely function based. Like I have a set of modular scripts, and I can build an entire solution without ever creating a new script.
Little Legos.
They basically everything is carried in the script parameter. And so like some functions like set field or navigate. So the navigation script, for instance, might have a portion where you hit the navigation script, and the first thing it does is it calls a validation script to, so you can do some actual validation with the script parameters to whether or not to run the script. Then it passes through that, and then it gets to maybe the first thing it'll see is, do I want to set any fields before I leave this layout? If so, I'm going to run the set field script. And then after that, and then it includes stuff like open a window, close a window. then do the navigation. And then when it gets to the layout it's going to, do I want to set any fields there? And if so, it'll set those fields. And then it all wraps up with a final script, which is go to object. And in go to object also includes go to row, go to record, refresh object, things like that. And it's all based on like looping functions. So for instance, when I hit the set field script, I can send it any number of fields and any number of values, and it will loop through those variables and set those fields. And it's all structured. So and I've kind of extended that out to a degree to where I can literally write an entire solution without hardly ever having to write a new script or a dedicated script in any way. But I'd put it at most everything I do is about 90% is on the modular scripting. And then anything that gets a little more complicated or gets outside of those modular scripts, then I create a script specifically for that. And I also do a lot of like, if I'm on an invoices layout, I'll do a script called invoice, and then I'll have it subject broken down into actions. So if the action equals create a new invoice, or if the action equals email an invoice, it's like there's a what do we call it? Subroutine is kind of the way of looking at it. So
that's like a code library, and you
Yeah.
just specify which portion of the code you're going to run.
Yeah, which part of the script I
Yeah.
want to run. And the script is named for whatever section it's in. So like if it's the invoicing layout, then I've got an invoice script, and anything I do that needs something other than the modular scripting, I'll put it into an action subroutine in that script. So that's but that's my preferred style of doing it. But yeah, I mean,
It's a style choice.
Yeah.
Here's an example of that. I have three different window scripts. One is a temporary window, which will actually put it off screen. If you notice down here, we've got logic for putting it off screen if it's not me. If it's me running the script, if the developer's logged in, it shows it on the screen and then goes away. But things like a dialog window, which I guess has not been updated in a while, but the card window I use a lot. And this is when I want to call a card window, I send it the layout name, the window name, and then a set of IDs. And I've added recently in this solution the field name for the ID, because I have a standard way I write my primary key, and it's always just ID. So it's the table ID. So I know
too, yeah.
So that, but the IDs here are the underscore KP triple underscore and then the 4-letter code for the base table, and so what I did was add the field name. So the field name for the ID. So basically what this is, you can send a bunch of IDs, it'll open the window, find all those records in the ID. So it loops through, like Ron was talking about, looping through all of the IDs that you send it, and creates a multi-record find, a multi-request find, and then performs the find. So with this one script, I can say, okay, I want this layout with these records in a card window. And so that's like what Ron was talking about, only Ron does it a lot more than I do. I really need to spend more time creating some of those standard scripts. That's a good idea.
I've really gotten the habit of making, like, every script that I write, whatever it is whatever action I'm performing, I always write the script to be context independent, so that if I'm writing a script on an invoice layout to, fire off an email of that invoice, I'll always write it so that everything gets carried in the script parameter, because my experience has been that so many times, whatever that function is, I'm going to need it from another context as well at some point. So maybe it's on, some kind of report layout, and the user or the client or my employer will say, hey, can you put a button on this layout so I can just fire that email from here? And then it's like, okay, instead of writing a whole new email script from that context, I use the same email script and just send it the context in the parameter. And so I've gotten in the habit of literally every script that I write, whatever I'm doing, I'll first write it from the context that it's in, and then I'll kind of convert all of the parameters into so that I can figure out how to make sure I can run it from any other context and just send it the parameters that it needs.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good job, Ron. Yeah, you shame me because I don't do that near as much as I should.
Well, for me, a lot of it,
I'm not so sure.
it's
Sometimes
just
there's
preference.
We try to do as simple a script as possible. We try not to do abstraction like that because it's very hard to support. So when you start getting a script that's conditional all the way to too many, it's too abstract. It's too hard to support. We would rather do something called a wrapper. So you may have a core functionality script that is modular, but you want something specific, you would wrap a script around it. So consider your core functionality like a subscript, but the delivering script is the wrapper. So rather than having that core functionality have a lot of conditionals. Hard to describe.
Yeah.
No, and I see your point. Yeah.
Well, I think more than a lot of conditionals, what I'm doing is just taking all of the context out of the script and putting it into the script parameter. So the data that's being delivered.
Yeah, but then you get to a point where if someone else comes along, what is this script doing?
Yeah,
it's hard to decipher.
Yeah, there's definitely that somebody would have to be able to wrap their head around. And you know, the fact that I do it all consistently in a way that if once somebody's able to wrap their head around what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, then it's done the same way through the entire solution. So it's not so. I would definitely agree that another FileMaker developer opening my solution is going to have the first thing they're going to run into is what the hell is he doing? But once they figure out what I'm doing, it's consistent. So
I don't know. You got to be careful you get too clever.
Yeah, that goes to the whether you're an independent guy working on your own or whether you're working in a company on a team.
Right.
If you're on a team, you got to have team-based policies.
Right. Yeah, it would definitely.
If you're working on your own, you can do stuff like that, you know, to streamline the way you work as much as you want.
Right.
But
like
obviously,
you'd have to have the entire team up to speed on how that that whole approach to doing things in order for if you had to have a team of people working in that solution. So yeah, I agree. It's
even if you had a team that was all like on the same page and all wanted to work together and they had the motivation to come up with a consistent way of doing it, no two people are going to do it exactly the same way anyway. You know, you're going to find a lot of that. Even in committed teams, there's always quirks and variables from one person to the next.
Yeah.
Ron, I tend to go more like you. I do pass quite a bit in the parameters. How do you manage, or how do you know what parameters need to be passed into a script? What's your convention for that?
As far as like in the script where there might be a note at the top that says these are the parameters that are available, or
that's what you do. You put in a note, you put in like a comment.
To some extent. And again, going back to the fact that pretty much everything I work on, only I work on it. So it's I haven't documented anywhere near as thoroughly as I need to. But I try to do that. Other than that, it's really just a matter of, you know, it's not as well documented as it should. So for me, it's just about seeing where it comes into play and then going, oh yeah, there's that parameter I could send. So it's like looking through the script and, you know, if I want to open a window, I see the part where it says if new window, then I go, oh, there's the variable I need. So that's something that I've been working on, doing that documentation to be able to make sure that somebody could in one place see all of the different variables that are available. So
do you
that's
know
why
can I jump in on that?
Put them at the top, and also I put them in the script name. You know, if there's not a massive amount, I usually give some idea to when you call the script of what you need to have and in what order they're in.
So when we
You know,
used to
so
put it in
like a
comments
function.
too- Yeah, we used to put it in comments too. We've started just having a perform script as one of our, right above our declare variable section, perform script step that's disabled, that I just put everything in there, all my parameters, and then literally whenever I need to run that script, I just copy that script step, paste it to where it needs to be. Everything's already in there. If it's going on a button, all I do is open it up, copy the text that's already in there, and
Yeah.
run away with it.
Okay.
But
Tony,
by
what were
putting
you
it
gonna
in a
say?
perform script at the top really makes a big help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just, I think, John, what I'm seeing here, line 21 through line 26 would be what we would do. I would instantiate every possible variable that is being passed in, even though they may not always be passed in, you know what I mean? Like if you have a
Right.
you have a script and sometimes you're going to pass it 10 variables, sometimes you're going to only pass it 6. So I would, declare lines 21 through 26, all of them, and that would be sufficient. If I wanted to kind of go above and beyond, if I had variables that are, required, I pass them into a subroutine, which is, I think it's one line where you send in a key value pair to a subroutine that says, tell me whether this is empty or not. And I've only done that rarely, where I had a routine I was refactoring where I wanted to make sure that as I was calling it in a complete fashion. But I think I'm a huge believer in the concept that comments are a lie waiting to happen.
Yeah. Because if you don't stay on top of updating them, which is, I mean, it takes so much. Yeah.
And the code
but
is the
especially on a team.
the ultimate truth, right? The code is the ultimate truth.
Yeah.
So, what's wrong with set variable? There it is. What am I expecting? There it is.
I don't know. My comments are at the top in the little signature area, and I have every single time I go into a script and make a change, I document it with the year, month, date, military time, and then what I did in my name. And I'm like gold doing that. I just have to,
Well,
because
my
I'm not
hat's
going to
off to you.
remember.
My
I
hat
got
is
it.
off
You're
to you.
amazing, Brian.
I got a
I'm
story.
not going to remember, and I'm just going to slap myself. So I just do it. It's done. I
got a
do
story
it.
about that. When I was in high school in wood shop, I had a teacher. Anybody who's ever had a shop class knows that they say, always stay by the machine until it comes to a complete stop, so that the next person. So this teacher said, don't do that. Do not do that. He says, walk away. When you approach a machine, assume it's running. Said, you are responsible for yourself. Do not count on somebody else, because somebody else is going to let you down. Somebody else is going to not follow the rules, and you're going to get screwed, lose a hand or whatever. So he says, don't stay by the machine, and don't assume that anybody else has stayed by the machine. You are responsible. And I thought, that's kind of, because I had all kinds of shop classes back when they actually had shop still in school, because I'm that old. But every one of my shop teachers, was always like, yeah, you got to make sure the machine is completely stopped before you walk away from it. All you need is one person who doesn't follow that rule, and you're toast.
Yeah.
So.
And Chris,
It is an interesting thing. What's nice about, like, we'll do comments at the top, history now supporting this or something like that, and then where it happens in the code, we will do the comment of it. And let's say you have a comment, are any of the customers active? Okay, and your next line of code is the calc that customers are active. What's helpful when you come back to someone else's code, you say, okay, here, are any customers active? Then you look at their calc and say, well, that's actually not doing that. They thought it was, but it's not. But at least you have their intent.
Right.
So you might not trust it, but you see what their intent was at that point. So that's kind of helpful. I'm trying to think of how, like, to describe, Brian, the difference between what you're doing and what we would suggest, like what we would do. So for example, imagine this. Imagine you have a create invoice script, and it takes parameters in. One parameter could be an array of line items. Another parameter could be the customer ID.
Yeah.
Okay. So terms, whatever.
Yeah.
That's your create invoice script. However, it takes parameters. No parameter snobs here. We happen to use JSON. Okay.
I use let.
What we would do on a customer layout, that create invoice button would be its own script, and it would be called button create invoice from customer.
Right.
And it would, the script would be, we call it a UI script, because all it's doing is deliver JSON to an actual CRUD script, API script. So it would package up a JSON package, and it would basically probably only pass the customer ID out of all the listed, all the parameters that the invoice could take.
Yeah.
All I'm passing is, all I know is customer ID. So I would package up customer ID. I would call to the button script, create invoice from customer, would call the create invoice script, passing those parameters. Create invoice script would do its thing, creating an invoice. Let's imagine it's just a new window.
Yeah.
Go to invoice layout, new record, set customer ID, close window, return the invoice ID.
Yeah.
So the invoice ID comes back to the button, create invoice from customer.
Mhm.
I know whether I got an error, because it would return an error if it couldn't happen, or I have the invoice ID I just created. And then maybe my next line is go to invoice, and it would probably be enter find mode, go to layout invoice, set field invoice ID to the invoice ID I just returned from my script, perform find, boom, you're there.
Yeah.
So that's a little different. So my invoice script is very modular. It can be called from any context, but the scripts that deliver the JSON are context dependent. So those are our UI scripts.
So it sounds essentially what I'm kind of wrapping my head around is it sounds like a technique of scripting that says these functions are always going to happen on the base table. Wherever I fire it from, I'm just going to send the ID to get to the right record. And now it's going to like do it off screen or in another file or wherever it's going to go and do it. It's going to go to the base table, find the record I want to do it, and then do that function right from there. So then your context isn't so in the script itself is going to be pulling directly from the tables or directly from the field, but you're always going to be in the right context when you're firing this script. Yes. Because your script, your wrapper script is basically telling it, here's the ID, now go to the context and do it.
Here's the data you need to do. When you know, go down the other script, goes with context as this thing, comes back.
So it's kind of
I mean, it's the same philosophy as like when you're building a PSOS script, right? You know, it has to be in a certain context to run. You have to deliver everything to it needs.
I think that's what I was thinking about too, because when I use perform script on server, that seems to be the way it always, like you have to get it to the right context regardless, because if you're sending it parameters, you still have to have the right context to perform it from. So yeah, that's the trick on, because wherever you fire your script from on perform script on server, that's not the context it's going to fire on the server. So especially, you know, I know I had to work around the whole, you know, opening script firing when I'm perform script on server. There's a whole series of stuff in the opening script. And then what we were talking about earlier, when you detect whether it's on the server or not, that's where I use that to say, skip the opening script and just do these basic things that need
sometimes there's a lot of UI stuff in your unopened you don't really even need. You can bail out.
And I was going to say, Chris, I like that idea of doing a perform script commented out. That way I can structure the script parameter exactly the way it needs to be structured, because I use
especially if it's like a JSON object and you just have like a sample parameter and you just copy it and then you just in my case I use let and you know and I forget who was, I think Tony was talking about the set variable steps. Like I don't have any of that because I use a let statement and all I'm using is an evaluate to evaluate the variables that I'm sending in the let statement. So there is no set variable strip steps for all of those. We got away from that because we found it a lot more readable. Well, there are places we'll still do that, but we let it a lot of readable to have it more like Jonathan has, where here's my variables, top level.
And
it's very easy in FileMaker to have things be 7 clicks deep. To find your answer. And so we're trying to avoid it as much as possible. So we'll probably parse that incoming parameter just like this. You see all of them.
Yeah, you do
Um,
your finds that way. You don't do your perform finds with all the parameters invisible.
Yeah,
You have enter find mode, set
enter find
field,
mode, set field,
perform
yeah.
find. Yeah,
That's
just because when you're trying to troubleshoot it later, you don't want stuff like that hiding
so
from you.
annoying.
Yeah.
So
Does
annoying. Yeah.
anybody use
So
set
try
variables
to avoid
anymore?
lets. The other thing you have to be careful with lets is if you define a variable with sign and let, it could conflict and overwrite a variable that's defined outside of the let.
Yeah, and I
So
don't,
gotta watch for that.
there's a lot of stuff that another thing that comes into that too is I've been doing a lot of stuff with well, I call them layout variables, where I'll set variables on the layout level.
Level
And-
level
Careful
0
there.
variable.
Very careful
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, because if you run a
Scary.
script, it sometimes your layout, especially if you're going layout to another layout, and on that other layout, there's somewhere in a calculation, like a hide field or something, it sets a variable. If you have a variable of the same name in the script, the one on the layout's going to overwrite the one that's already established in the script.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
shouldn't
that's fun. But
shouldn't your variable names in the let statement not start with a $sign? I mean, starting with a tilde or something. That's the convention.
right, but
Yeah.
the idea of using what we're talking about is using a let statement to establish variables with the $sign so that they can be
Gotcha.
used in the script. So, and it's the
Gotcha.
same thing on a layout. You can establish $sign variables on a layout with one
Yes.
object hide calculation, for instance, and then you could use that variable in another object calculation field. I do a lot of that with button bars. I have a navigation system that's entirely dynamic that pulls from the layout list, parses the layout list into parameters, and then provides a whole navigation structure of button bars, all based on those variables. So I made it a point to name those variables in a way that is very unlikely for somebody to put that same variable in.
You have to do that. You have to protect
Yeah, you
yourself.
have to.
They
So
call that
I would
namespaces.
admire that engineering, but I would hate to inherit that. I'll be honest with you.
Well, I mean, the thing with, I mean, honestly, the menu system that I put in place, like I never have to touch a button or a menu item. I just add a new layout, name the layout with the proper layout naming convention, and it
Yes.
automatically falls into place in the navigation structure. So once I set up the file to start with, I can add an infinite number of layouts and never have to change, I make sure I have to copy the layout to add a layout. So because it's already got the button bars on it. Can I show you real quick what that looks like?
Yeah,
Love
sure.
to.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Mind if I take over real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Do I need to
No, shouldn't.
close? Okay.
No, there we go. Okay, so what that looks like is something
I
like
think
this.
you have to stop sharing, Jonathan, so he can share.
Okay.
There you
go.
go.
Hey guys, yep. Are you able to see mine now?
Yeah,
Yep.
cool.
Okay, so this is my own little CRM and invoicing system, but I've got all this navigation that's set up here, and then even down here on other layouts is all just button bars that are using calculations and like I said, what I call layout variables to establish what the label is, what the destination is, what the, so in this case, I could come in and add a new layout just by doing manage layouts, duplicate this layout. And depending on how I name it will determine where it falls into.
See all the
system.
dependencies though, Ron? That's what I say. I admire the engineering, but someone like me coming into this, there's such a ramp up for understanding what you're doing. Whereas if you had that invoicing button, having a script attached, go to invoice list. That's
Yeah.
the script.
Sure. Yeah. No, I definitely get that it's,
What did you really gain? That's what I wanted you to question.
Well, what I really gained is the fact that I can build a solution in a fraction of the time because I never have to edit the menu structure. I never have to worry about the navigation. It's already pre-built in. So once I add the layout, one of the reason I started working on this was in the standard button setup where you have all your buttons on this layout are told go to home, go to invoice, go to product, and then you've got all these different layouts. but then you decide to change or add a new button, you've got to go to every layout and change those buttons. And, you know, that takes a lot of time. And if you don't stay
No, but
up
I
with
think
that, as
what
a solution
Barbara's
gets
saying
bigger and
was-
bigger,
Mhm.
as you know, as a solution gets bigger
Yeah.
and bigger, then it gets, you know,
I get that, Ron. You probably have to go that way if you start to do your navigation this way. We tend to do a card window.
yeah.
So our navigation is one place and it's in the card window.
Right.
So we don't have to be that dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Um,
so show me you added another layout. Now what do you have to do? Would you have to add another button bar though?
Yeah, the button already is there. So I just added the layout and that's changed the name to plus. And I don't know why I put that, but let's go to manage layouts.
But if you had another whole entity,
So
let's say you had another whole entity equal to
Another top level, Rob.
another top level,
right? Another whole top level.
then I would change this name to new, for instance, and then
Uh-huh.
whatever this, you know, new dash. Now this one falls into place up here. Oop, where did it
It's
go?
really
New,
nice.
right there. And then there's dash. So this is home with dashboard, and this is new with dashboard. And of course, it's a duplicate layout, so it looks the same, but it automatically fell right into place. And then I've got another upper level. So I actually have this menu structure is actually capable of 4 levels deep, so that I can have, yeah, and they automatically just fall into place. So for instance, here I've just got this separated into app and settings. So if I go to settings, I've got my preferences and users and all that kind of stuff. If I go to manage layouts and I wanted to add a whole new top level, then
Yeah.
I would duplicate that. And instead of settings, I would call it, you know, another level. And then we'll just leave that. Now, when I come up here, now I've got a new level right here to start
That
with.
puts another one there.
And then, and not only that, but the other thing that I've done is in the manage layouts, you'll see that I've got desktop and I've also got mobile. And when you end, this will determine, I can do a whole nother set of layouts with the different structure based on the fact that if it's mobile access. And so if I actually have,
But when do you hit the button bar limit? Like you've got to hit a button bar limit, right? You got to add another button bar segment.
well, that's really is about managing, like, for instance, the button I have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. I
Okay.
mean, I could always add another one, you know, I could just add.
But then you're having to go to every layout to do that once.
Right, but it's, if I get to the point where I need to expand like that, yeah, I'm gonna copy and paste the whole menu structure and just go down the layouts and just replace them all in
So you
one
bought
spot.
yourself some room. You
Yeah.
decided, I'm going to put these many segments. I'm not going to
Yeah.
use them all. I don't think I'm ever going to use them all.
Right,
It's like you do with repeating fields. Like
yeah,
I'm going to do 20. I'll probably
Yeah.
use 10. I bought myself some future. So
yeah,
you did that with your button bars.
right. And so if I
Okay.
get to the point where I've used my maximum here, then I start to think, well, maybe something up here can be broken out into its own level. Maybe something,
Oh,
if I've
that way.
if I've used up all my buttons here, then maybe I need to look at, maybe something here can be broken out into a different level. So
So Barbara,
that's the first
how
thing
do
I
you
do.
use the card window for navigation?
Yeah, that
So Ron, I'm sorry, before we go to Barbara, are you using the SQL query to gather the list of layout names, or what are you
Nope.
using to gather the list of layout names?
I'm simply I've made some custom functions. So let's see, take a look at the custom functions, and I've added in a lot of different options. One of the other things that's nice that I wrote into it that it does is it resizes the text based on how long the name is. So if I put in a long name in the button, it resizes the text to fit. So I've
That's
got
the frustrating thing about button bars. Wouldn't it be nice
Yeah.
if they could, they always have to be all the
Automatically do that,
same
yeah.
length. Yeah.
So I've
Yeah.
actually, so if I look at one of my custom functions for how I'm putting together my, it's basically, it's grabbing the layout name. It's grabbing the list of layout names, it's looping through them, and it's parsing out for that section which layouts that it needs to have. And it's very complex. I mean, I've definitely spent many hours putting this all together. And then in the end, what it's going to give me is the list of layouts that belong in that menu section. And so what, for example, on the first level, it's easy enough to say, you know, loop through the list of layouts. Now I've got a button for each one of those layouts. Well, what happens when you add the second level? Well, now you loop through the layouts and give me the first layout with that name in that level. So this will give me the first layout with home in that position. This one gives, and then this one gives me the first button with new in that position, first one with invoicing in that position. So it's basically parsing that layout list and it's picking and choosing which buttons belong there. Yeah.
So not only your naming convention is important, but also the order that you're placing the
Yes,
layout
in
your layout
yeah,
report.
and that's actually one of the things that's inherent with it is the fact that I can change the order just by simply changing the order of the position of the layout in the layout list. And then
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Ron. We got so many dependencies. I mean, it's a wonderful thing.
Right.
But
it's
I
not gonna-
would,
But
and it's a brilliant feat of engineering. I will not
Yeah.
take that away from you. But
But it's
I
not
would
for
be
everybody.
Ron, I love it.
you so bad if I had to take this
Okay.
over.
Hi.
Okay.
And Chris,
I would love you if you gave me a whole documentation order or even a video
And
or here's how
I
to
am
do
working
it.
on I'm working on that because it isn't right now. This is available in Chris on my website, rgcdata.com. You can download the file with all of this menu.
Oh, look at you.
So
Okay,
it's available. I've documented it as best I can. Documentation, like it seems like it never feels like it's ever
Yeah,
good
it's
enough.
never feels enough. I know, but
Um,
something like this definitely benefits, especially when you show me it.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I'm hoping to do is to distribute this, to make this available for people who would like to use it. And right now it's, you know, it's free to download. I've got this. And the other thing I have is a native FileMaker calendar that uses.
Oh, Ron, you got to save that.
Yeah. And then that one is the one that I really want to put out, you know, like I want to put it on Marketplace and stuff like that. So this is a
It's a
native,
web viewer, right?
huh?
Oh, that's
It's
not
a
a web
native
viewer.
calendar built with portal and button bars.
I see. Oh.
And it has, yeah.
well,
It's
the nice thing about button bars, is they are one of two objects in FileMaker that actually resize proportionally.
Yeah, like every segment will resize instead of like in a portal field,
Yeah,
you can only resize the you know one field.
One. Yeah. The other thing is repeating fields, but they're more difficult to deal with. You can have entirely separate calculations in each
True.
of your button bar segments. So it actually becomes quite a useful tool for this kind of a calendar.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
we're
really
back to situational.
yeah.
All
And
about
this
the
is
situation you're in.
oh sure, everything's situational. But again, this is
Well, I mean, if
thing
you
that
like
I-
JavaScript, then fine, make
Yeah.
yourself a JavaScript calendar. But we're
do,
not all
I
JavaScript
do.
gurus.
And this
So-
came about because I was trying
Not that
not to,
hard.
yeah.
Not that
This came
hard.
about because I was trying to find an option that was not JavaScript. And you know, is
Okay.
there a way to build a native FileMaker calendar that first and foremost had the ability to resize and stretch, which it does. And then actually through Jonathan and I were having a discussion where he mentioned that somebody had done something similar with repeating fields years ago. And that
Portals.
and I thought, well,
the seed code calendar was originally
Portals.
repeating fields
yeah,
in a portal
Uh,
with repeating fields.
yeah.
Okay, maybe repeating fields. I don't remember the repeating.
Well, it was repeating fields across and portals down, and the portal
Yeah.
rows down.
So
The
essentially,
nice thing about that is because it would resize in any direction you wanted.
Wow.
so
Well,
yeah, so
yeah.
so I decided, well, what if I, instead of repeating fields, I use button bars? And so I ended up developing this all out. So that's something else that I'm wanting to put out, like on Claris Marketplace or whatever, and
Yeah, it's
available.
nice.
Well,
I've done
you
other
write
reports
better
with button
code when
bars.
you share your code. You
Yeah.
write better code.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it feeds yourself.
Yeah.
I wrote a
So-
date picker that works like this. He uses button bars and does a calendar date
Yeah.
picker.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And this
I've done
basically is
reports
pulling
with
all of
button
its
bars.
data this is pulling all of the calendar data from one relationship. So
Another
That's
thing is you can specify that in a button bar that if something doesn't have a value in it, that it becomes invisible. So so I've done reports where you can resize multiple fields, any size you want. So like if you only have 2 rows, it just gives you 2 full rows. If you've got 10 rows, it gives you 10, puts it in the same space and resizes nicely. So button bars are just like for reports, button bars are awesome.
Button bars are amazing. You know what I was thinking of when you were first starting your script demonstration? The thing that we overlook when you were doing your comments, just to get your what I'm doing here in the script.
Uh-huh.
Wasn't it a huge thing when they added the ability to have white space?
oh yeah.
Yes.
Remember, we used to not have even
yeah.
white. That's what it was like.
Yeah.
Things
I
you take
remember
for
Uh-huh.
that.
granted now, but that was a thing that you worked in this dense little script thing.
So
That's how
speaking
old I
of,
am.
when did everybody start using FileMaker?
No.
When we all start using it?
Mhm.
3.
One of my first applications I got for my new Mac Plus was Neshoba FileMaker.
What?
Oh my goodness.
Oh
That's
my
how far back I
gosh.
go. And the way I started, like Ron, was I had graduated school. I was working for my brother-in-law, and he had 2 DB2 consultants working on building a database for him.
Yeah.
And I had my little Mac, and I had FileMaker, and I wrote the system for them that these DB2 people had taken months and months and thousands of dollars to do.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Amazing.
churn the thing out. It was basically, if I think about it now, all it was, now expectations are so high of what something could be. This was just an order form. It was
Right.
literally an
Yeah, but
order
that was
form
what,
that they were
1988?
typing on carbon paper. And if they made a mistake, they had to start over.
Now, wait a minute, Barbara,
That's
that
all
version
it
of
was. And it was
FileMaker
a
was
hit.
what year?
I don't want to say. I must have been 5 years old. It was probably
Obviously. We already
obviously
guessed that.
89, 90, 1990.
Barbara,
Yeah.
then
You're one of the earliest FileMaker users.
So I was doing FileMaker databases for my brother-in-law's business while I was looking for a real job. And then what ended up happening was I was hanging out at this Apple dealership, because Apple dealerships used to be a thing before Apple stores.
Mhm.
And they hired me.
Hmm.
And they said, you're here all the time. Why do you want to work here? And I'm like, doing what? And they said, well, we're starting a training center. So we need someone to teach classes. Intro Mac, intro Word, intro Excel, intro.
You were loving it.
So that's what I did. I started my career off as a
Fun.
trainer. And it was a lot of fun. And all I had to do was learn all the latest cool things Apple was putting out, which was kid in a candy shop. It was a wonderful time.
So you were
Nice.
pre-FileMaker. Did they have a FileMaker 1? I don't know.
No, they had
I think it
a
started with
FileMaker, but I went through FileMaker 2. They kept changing names. FileMaker 4, FileMaker Pro, all the different versions of FileMaker. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was
How
definitely
about
a
everybody else?
7
I saw a
FileMaker.
version of FileMaker a client of mine had that was FileMaker Roman numeral 2.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. And at some point, because I was a training center, Apple was publishing curriculum, and they were publishing FileMaker curriculum, FileMaker classes when it was Apple Claris, the original Claris. So I was doing classes in FileMaker. And then we started doing databases for our customers, because they would take the class and say, this is not my job. I really can't do this. So could you just do the database for us? And that's how it all played out. And but I rode the whole desktop publishing wave. So I was teaching Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, Work Express. Remember all those? We were
Oh,
all
I
into
remember
that.
all those. I used
Oh,
all
yeah.
those.
PageMaker.
Yeah, Brian and I and we had a couple other people too that founded the a local electronic graphic designers back in 90. It was 89 and 90. We were using FileMaker I'm sorry,
Oh,
not
yes.
FileMaker. We were using PageMaker, Quark Express,
Yeah.
Aldous Freehand,
Yeah.
Illustrator, all those. And I had like the first, I was a manager of computer publishing at the University of Louisville, and I
Oh.
had the first Linotype image setter in town.
Linotype is 10 minutes from my house. Like
The
their
Linotype
headquarters.
salesperson used to bring his clients back by to see my setup. I had a room full of Macs, and we spent like a couple $100,000
See, now
on
this chart, Claris 1987. I didn't know when they
PostScript.
were started.
That's
Yeah, but
pretty
no, there
far
was
back.
FileMaker before 87.
Yeah,
Definitely. There was
but
the
it wasn't.
Neshoba version.
It was Neshoba. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't
But those
Apple.
were fun times, you know. It was, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, folks,
I have met like half the FileMaker developers I know got their start in graphic design, graphic
I
arts
think
of some sort.
because Mac was very big in graphic design.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that you know, and it was a thing that we could do without
Well,
having
it's also the
computer
the
science
page.
degree.
It's the PageMaker of database development environment.
Yeah.
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 Because it's the thing that you can give to the secretary. Here, do our database, you know,
Yeah.
or they used to give copies of PageMaker to the secretary and say, hey, do our newsletter. You know, she didn't know anything about type or writing or design or anything, but PageMaker, obviously you can do it. And so FileMaker became that. It became the, oh, anybody can do it thing, you know?
I know. If only they shipped it on every Mac for free, man, how big that would be.
This
Well,
new,
I know.
this
And if
new
only we bought
freebie.
stock in all those companies when we were.
If I still had all my Apple stock I had in the late 90s, it'd be worth $7 million today.
Oh, I know. But then we actually lived through the Scully years, so we have a reason we didn't buy Apple stock at that point.
That's when I bought it, when it was at the lowest.
Yeah, I remember all those. But yeah,
Oh,
so that's how. Yeah, good old
but I don't
FileMaker.
have it today. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
This has turned into a really good group today with a lot of great discussion. It's been a lot of fun today.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for participating. I was hoping that was going to happen.
Yeah. So, but we
Thank
are.
you guys very much.
We have hit. We've gone a little over already. So.
Oh, my.
No.
Yeah. So I figure probably about time to wrap it up. But it's
Okay.
It was fun. I don't often have the time to come to these things. I appreciate it. It was
Love
great.
to see you again, Barbara.
Yeah, we
I'd like to
definitely
see
hope
you
to see you
again.
here again. You've been
Thanks, guys.
great.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah. See you guys.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody, y'all have a great day. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.